Hello and welcome to another episode of the Super Sensei Podkast. I have a special guest today. His name is Nick Semwogerere. He is a rapper, writer, record label owner, and ESL teacher. Nick was born and raised in London, but spent the majority of his life traveling through Europe, being a digital nomad, and discovering the ins and outs of various countries and cultures. The Balkans hold a special spot in his heart, which we can see in many of his songs, which have hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube and other popular platforms. Nick also holds a BA in film and video interactive arts, but that's just one of the many specialties he has to offer. His versatility, traveling experience, passion for music, love for teaching knows no bounds, and that's why we decided to invite him to be the next sensei that will educate us in various topics. Hello, Nick, and welcome to the Super Sensei Podcast.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
So we haven't seen each other in a while, but we go way, way back. So can you tell me, how are you? How have you been?
Yeah, pretty good, man. Just keeping busy. Like I took over the record label that I used to release music through. I decided to take it over. Basically because basically the guy who owned it,
Mm-hmm.
previously the guy who started the label, in fact, he has another business like into like web design, and he's focusing on
Uh-huh.
that. And I just thought, well, I just floated the idea to him. What would you think about selling the label? I thought it was going to be more of a negotiation, to be
Yeah.
honest. But he just went, okay. So I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. 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 I'm also a firm believer of the quote, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And I can see that you also go by that quote.
Yeah, like look, with all due respect
Yeah.
to Oliver Kirkham, the guy who started it,
Uh-huh.
he did really well to because basically the label is it's an imprint underneath a bigger company called Believe Digital, which is well, it's a French company, but the head office is in
Mm-hmm.
Luxembourg, like lots of companies do for tax reasons.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
so he approached Believe Music when like 2000, I guess like 2004 or 5, when like Spotify, all these kind of streaming was
Uh-huh.
just coming into play. A lot of people didn't really know where it was going.
Mm-hmm.
So the deal he got, the contract he got was to operate as a label imprint underneath their label. They're like a label and a
Mm-hmm.
music distributor. And
Yeah.
so essentially, I can release my own music. I can get other artists signed under me who release music through the label. They take 30%, I get 70%. And then if I have an artist signed to the label,
Mm-hmm.
I split that 50% with them.
Yeah.
So that contract I now inherited through Oliver with Believe. There's lots of artists or even labels now who have a similar contract
Mm-hmm.
with the same parameters, with the one difference is that they're paying monthly rather than
Mm-hmm.
having a split between revenue split. They're just paying monthly. And like it's really to get this kind of a deal now, it's really difficult.
It's
Like
rare.
it's rare,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really rare. Like I mean, if you got like a big enough name or something, yeah, maybe you can do it. But like the way that Oliver
Mm-hmm.
did it back then, no way. But basically,
Yeah.
he took the opportunity because they were just like, well, we don't know what's gonna go with this. What's gonna happen with this streaming thing? Let's just have a go and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think you have a very special view on this because you started out as a rapper and you dealt with many, I assume, many record labels. So you got to see it from that perspective. And now you know how to handle and how to just give the biggest respect to these new artists, these up
yeah,
and coming artists. Yeah. And that's quite interesting that I think when we met, I think like 5 or 6 years ago, I remember the way you talked about rapping is the same way you talk about it now. like with such passion. And I'm interested to ask, like, do you remember where this passion came from? Like, when did it start? Did it start early in your childhood? You grew up in London, and were you inspired by these local artists, or more maybe somewhere across the pond, the American rappers? So could you tell us more about that,
Yes,
about your beginnings?
my journey into to rapping is quite unorthodox compared to a lot of
Hmm.
people I know from London because I went to boarding school in Ireland in County Kildare for 5 years between the ages of 5 and 10,
Hmm.
and I met a guy there called William Balagade, who was also his family's from my mother's from Uganda, my father's from Ghana. His family is from Uganda. So we kind of, as soon as I saw him, we kind of clicked on that cultural basis. And he was a year older than me, and he was a big hip hop fan. And at that
Hmm.
point, I, I I can't say I was much of a hip hop fan, really. I was just like, yeah, I listen to music in general, but so my first kind of taste of hip hop was in Ireland with this dude William,
Ah.
and like we used to kind of play around with it, but nothing too serious. But I never really grasped onto it then. I really grasped onto it when I came back to London when I was around like 13, because my cousin Ivan is also a really big hip hop head.
Hmm.
And I, because my background, I guess, into rapping more came from writing, because I was writing poetry. I was
Hmm.
writing poetry, I was writing short stories. So I respected it from that sense, but not everything, but a lot of the things I was seeing, like I wasn't into some of the stuff I was hearing. Or the
Hmm.
way that, let's say, mainstream media at the time was presenting. Oh, it's just a bunch of gangsters and whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how newspapers and media would treat it. So I didn't really gravitate to it until one day, my cousin Ivan brought this mixtape, like a literal mixtape that he made on a cassette tape. And he was like, check this out. Like if you don't like hip hop after this, then whatever.
Ah, yeah.
So I played it and I was listening to the songs, and there was two songs in particular. There was, well, a few Nas songs on there, and there was a song from Common. He was going by the name Common Sense back then, called
Hmm.
"Payback is a Grandmother." And when I heard this song, "Payback is a Grandmother," I was just captivated because he was telling a story. There was no chorus. He was
Yeah.
just rhyming, telling a story about how his grandmother's jewelry got stolen, and he left the house to go and find the guys who stole the jewelry, and he went to this place and that place, and then he ends up at the barber shop, and there's a shootout, and like
Yeah.
everything he was saying, I could visualize it, and I realized in that moment, oh, this is actually poetry, just with music. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
and that's the moment, like around 13, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna try this.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Yeah. The way you describe that, I think a very popular example of that kind of rap artistry is Eminem's "Stan" song.
Yeah.
I know it's mainstream, but still, it's like it's poetry. It's Eminem telling a story,
Yeah.
you know. And I also appreciate that much more than, as you said, these gangster rappers. I mean, they sound cool, they are great, when you work out and you want to motivate yourself, things like that. But having songs like that from Common, from Eminem, I think those songs really tell a story and they have soul, as we would say here in the
Yeah.
Balkans. It's something that you listen to over and over and you think like, wow, this just captivating, captivating.
Yeah.
And so you decided to take on that avenue of basically poetry rapping, and you mentioned on your platforms that you are also a writer. That's as you said now that you also have a BA in arts, interactive and video arts. So
Yeah.
you are really versatile. Like you that's basically that's what I thought, after doing a little research, on the internet. I thought, wow, this guy did everything. Like
Yeah,
he's
you
like,
know what's
yeah,
what's
yeah,
interesting as well because I was actually because I earlier when out with the English student earlier
mhm,
today we were kind of talking about what did we talk about? We were talking about the butterfly effect at one point
uh-huh,
during the lesson, and I was telling her that well she was telling me that she was discussing with her boyfriend about when she looks at her life how there are moments she realized if I didn't make this decision or I made that decision how life would have been so different. And then I told her that like how I came into the arts is quite similar. It's quite related to this concept of the butterfly effect. Because before that, it was something I was like music, writing, filmmaking. I was interested in that stuff, but it wasn't anything that I thought I would do myself, you know. But I was an athlete. Like in secondary school, I was in the football team,
mhm.
basketball, rugby, cross country running. I ran the 1500 meters also,
Yeah, you were quite the athlete.
and I was just that was it. I was gonna be well,
Yeah,
in my mind, I was gonna be a professional athlete, and then um, one of my PE teachers, Mr. Holder, he said to me one day, like, you're great at all of these sports, but if you want to be serious, you need to pick one, like and focus on it."
yeah, yeah,
So I said, okay, I went with football. And he was also the coach of the Crystal Palace youth team,
uh-huh.
and I know he had like he
Connections.
yeah he
Yeah.
wanted to try and bring me through. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do football, and then I got injured.
Hmm.
And in this point when I got injured, I remember this moment where I thought, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
What am I gonna? My grades were
What's my plan
terrible.
B?
Exactly, I had none.
Yeah.
My grades were terrible. But then during those 2 years, my grades started to get better. I ended up going to college to redo some exams from secondary school, but then ended up going to university, studying film and
Hmm.
making music. And I realized, okay, there's actually loads of other things I can do that are
Yeah.
not sports related.
Yeah. 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 And I think what I also noticed from you is you are so open, to just experiencing all kinds of stuff. Like I know some people that just think they are untalented and anything, and that's why, they shouldn't even try something. But I think that kind of openness is really important, to have. And we don't have to be talented, super talented in something to be eventually good at it. So I always say to my students, if you're not talented at it, then that just means you have to work harder than the talented one. So I think that's when someone realizes that, they become unstoppable. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, I agree for the most part,
Uh-huh.
but then there's also this element of being aware of where your natural strengths and abilities are. And I think, for example,
Yeah.
for the millennial generation specifically, can I call it a lie? Let's say a myth that we were told, I believe,
Hmm.
is that you can do whatever you want. You just gotta work hard. And there's an it's a positive message, of course, and there is an element of truth to it. But the
Yeah.
reality is, as you said it, you don't have to be super talented. I agree,
Hmm.
but just have a little bit of talent in the thing that you want to do. There's a saying that I came across recently that really stuck with me. It was I can't remember who wrote it now, but it's talent without hard work is a shame, but hard work without talent is a tragedy. And it's what I took from
Wow.
that is yeah, if you got the natural ability to do something and you're not pursuing it, that's sad. But also, if you really have like no like there's no modicum of talent, and you want to do this thing, like you really want to pursue it, maybe you're wasting your time,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, life is short, and it's better to choose something that we're at least a little good at.
Yeah.
It'll be easier for us to, finish that race, achieve those goals. So, like you, for example, you became, at first you were a writer and you heard this poetry. It sounded good to you. Not just good, but great. And you're like, okay, I want to dip my toes in this and try it out. And
Yeah.
how did that go? Like after you made that decision, I'm going to give this a try. So after the whole sports situation and everything, when you got to college, did you actively work on your songs? How did that
Yeah.
journey look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say there's one more thing about what I was previously saying, which is
Hmm.
connected to what you just said now.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't want to sound like too negative. Because I think you can become good or let's say proficient at anything if you work hard enough. Maybe you're not
Yeah.
going to be the best, but you can if you want to learn
Yeah, we don't
to
want to
draw.
discourage people.
Yeah, if you want to learn how
Yeah,
to draw and you're
yeah,
not good at drawing,
yeah,
if you practice enough, you will be able to draw if you really put the work in.
yeah.
You might not be the best.
You may not become the
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo of drawing, but you might become
Yeah.
like the, I don't want to offend anyone, any like football player, but let's say, I don't know, uh Garrett Barry or Johnny Evans of,
Yeah. Because
yeah.
this is like I found this with the question that you just asked with going into rapping. This is one of the things that was one of the learning curves for me was flowing on the beat because I was so stuck in this idea of
Mm.
poetry and writing where you just say whatever words you want to say, but now you have to fit it on an instrumental. It's got a flow. It's not just about rhyming. So in the beginning, like if my people who anyone who has my first mixtape, that's some of the best writing
Hmm.
I ever done lyrically. But even I can admit there's a ton of songs on there where the flow is it's not there.
Hmm.
It's not on the beat. It's out of time. Because I just wanted to say what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
It's like I want to say this. I'm gonna say it, even if it doesn't fit in the beat. I'm gonna say it. So that was the biggest learning curve for me was to like
Yeah.
find my flow.
Yeah, I mean, that was your first project.
Yeah.
You know, all great successes come from humble beginnings, and you needed to like refine your art throughout the years. And, with time, you got more and more efficient. And I mean, I know one of your most popular songs, like Sarajevo Grade Moj, that's my favorite. And I guess, when did that come out? I think it came out in like 2000,
2000, 2011. Yeah,
2011. Yeah.
2011. Yeah,
So how
December.
many years was that after you started rapping?
Mm, that's a while after because I guess I started like really writing raps like 14 and then
Hmm.
15 I was 14 15 I ended up in a group in school. It was called Naramzik. It
Hmm.
was basically there was a lot of us. There was 12 of us. 12 of us, 13 at one point, I believe, in that group. And basically the name was just made up of the first letter of
Ah,
everybody's name in the group.
cool,
We just
cool.
made a
That's it.
word, Naramzik.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Made
yeah.
up a new word. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very
So
creative. Yeah.
I know.
So when you compare that, like your first mixtape to, let's say, that song, I think your famous song, most famous song. So what's the difference there? I assume the flow is much better in the newer song. And
Yeah, but also to be like Sarajevo Grade Moj was like I heard the original song from
huh?
Khalid and I was like I want to do something. I want
Uh-huh.
to do something with this and my boy in Macedonia I said to him, "Hey man, what do you think about like let's do something with this, like sample it somehow?"
Yeah.
So Nikolai, if you're watching, big up. Thanks for um joining me in this endeavor. But yeah, I sent him the YouTube video. I was like, he's okay. I'm gonna do something with it.
Hmm.
And like Saturday was is a city I love, so it was really easy to write. I wrote the song in 15 minutes, recorded it in another 15. So honestly, the it's actually, to be fair, one of
It was
lyrically
it was
speaking, one of the most
effortless.
was yeah, it was effortless and it's
Yeah.
actually quite basic lyrically, but obviously people felt the song.
Yeah.
People like, well, there's this guy from London and he loves Sally, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So
I could
I think
really I
it wasn't
showed
so
it
much about
so many people and they were like, "Wow, this is so cool." You
yeah,
know. Yeah. And like the whole video you showing different parts of Sarajevo, and yeah, the sample was an amazing choice, you it was the perfect choice.
yeah,
So
it was
you really did Khalid justice.
yeah.
So yeah. And what's your thought on the current rappers? Like, have you been watching, for example, the Super Bowl show, the halftime show on the Super
Yeah,
Bowl done by Kendrick Lamar?
yeah, the Kent the I really loved the Kendrick performance,
Uh-huh.
but I also understand why there's lots of people who didn't like it. Because I've
Yeah.
seen people say, "Oh, it was the worst, you know, Super Bowl performance of all time." That's not true. The people saying it was the best. I also don't think it was the best, but I really liked it. I mean, I think it was something that I think was needed for the culture, especially for United States.
Mhm.
But I understand why there's people that didn't like it. He was delivering. I I presume he understood that not everybody was going to like it.
Yeah,
I
of
have to
course.
believe that.
Not everyone is a fan of hip hop.
But not just because it's hip hop. Like the political messaging
Hmm.
was, he was making a specific point, a specific critique about United States of America.
Hmm.
So I think there's when it comes to the people who didn't like it, I think there's the people who felt offended, but there's also
Yeah.
the people who weren't necessarily offended. I think they just didn't get it. They're like, I don't understand what's being said here. You know?
And they don't also understand the whole feud behind the song between him and Drake. I think
Yeah,
that's also one layer of the whole performance.
yeah,
And I think it's the most talked about layer. That's like my social media is filled with comments about,
really, is that really?
yeah, like Serena Williams also, because Drake is her ex, and yeah, just everyone's making fun of Drake. Did do you not see the same? Like maybe we're
Mm,
our
I
social
see
medias
that,
are just,
but
yeah, different.
I also what I more see is because that's like one layer of it, but there's a much
Yeah.
deeper layer of even in the Drake diss, they're not like us. He's critiquing
Hmm.
a lot of historical things about United States,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's interesting that the most, and I probably I don't doubt. I'm probably sure that most people are talking about the feud with Drake, but I think that part for many of the people who didn't like the performance, I think that part went over their
Mhm.
head. I think the whole like Samuel Jackson being Uncle Sam, like
Yeah.
a black Uncle Sam who's making these critiques about America. I think that really hit a nerve with some
Yeah.
people in a positive way, some people in a negative way. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great touch
yeah,
to the whole performance.
yeah,
I think I liked it, to be honest, and I also liked a few years back when Dr. Dre and 50 Cent and Eminem and I think Kendrick Lamar was also there.
yeah,
Like that to me has been the best one in years. Like the combination of those names. Like
Yeah.
I watched it, I think like 10 times, sometimes like even 3 times in a row. It was so good. Yeah. And like at the moment, are you you said that you like Kendrick's music? What about
Yeah, I'm a
some
fan of
other
Kendrick.
artists that you who
I'm a
else
fan
do
of
you like listening
I'm a
to?
fan of Kendrick, but I realize I've been saying to my brother recently as well that I realize I'm getting old when I don't know
Yeah.
half of the guys that people are talking about. I'm like, who's this one? Or who's that one? And
Yeah,
so I'm
like
trying. So
there
I've
are
spent
a
I spent a
thousand
few months.
little somethings today.
Yeah, so I spent a little bit of time recently just trying to see who's out there, who's
Yeah.
up and coming, and because there's I guess due to the digitalization of music, the the amount of music that is being released is phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like in the 90s, if it wasn't on the radio, like maybe you knew your local guys,
Yeah.
but who went on the radio. But other than that, now you can hear the local artist in a village somewhere, and you find them on Spotify, even though you don't live there.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. Yeah, it's much easier today for people to discover you. Like you just need a phone and you start filming, and that can be your beginning. So,
yeah, it's quite paradoxical because on one hand it's easier, or at least there's a you have a broader chance of
mhm.
people from other places seeing you. But on the other hand, because there is arguably you could argue no gatekeepers, but at least there's less gatekeepers. There's so much content out there. There's sometimes you miss quality stuff. So it's a quite a
Yeah.
paradoxical situation we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, and you also have those rappers that started out as just some YouTubers with viral videos, and they gained a big following. So they have this brand awareness to them online, and then they use that popularity to start a career. Like I think one of the most disputed rappers with that kind of background is KSI.
Right.
I
That was
assume
the
you,
first guy that came to my
yeah,
mind. Yeah.
yeah. So what do you think about him?
Like I like KSI as a personality. I liked his YouTube
Yeah,
stuff and salute to his success. But I think when guys like KSI start getting into the music, as great as it is for them, it does kind of create this problematic issue for other rappers in the scene. If we're talking about from a UK context particularly, there's guys who have been
yeah,
grinding for years, releasing material, doing this and that. KSI was doing his comedy videos, fine, and suddenly KSI, well, maybe he was making music in the background. I don't know, but we didn't know him for that, right? We knew him for what he was doing before, and because of his popularity with his YouTube content, that helps propel him to get hits. Like he's been on the Billboard charts in the United States, which most rappers in the UK haven't. And so now, for example, you have people in the United States going, "What is this? The best guy? Is this the guy? Is this what the UK is offering as a top
yeah,
MC?" And it's not like
yeah. They were making fun of the UK, making I don't know memes about it all day. Yeah,
so that's the only downside to that.
yeah, yeah. I'm also a big fan of his. I mean, I like his content. He's such a funny guy. Like I knew him from his early days, making FIFA videos. Just
Yeah,
yeah, he's great. He's a great content creator. And his songs, I like some of his songs, but you can't really say that that's, like there's always an asterisk there,
yeah.
calling it rap music or hip hop. But yeah, but yeah, and What about some other artists? Like I know like here in Serbia, American hip hop is really popular, but I think the UK scene is less popular. So which artist would you recommend to someone who's like who wants to maybe discover more hip hop
Yeah.
in across the pond?
Yeah, it's a really. I was actually chatting with a friend of mine from Sarajevo about this, well, from Vogasha specifically, but um, and who was he talking about? He was talking about Section Boys that came out um some years ago, and the UK hip hop scene is really rich, and I think it's interesting because
Mm.
I guess when the scene started here, there was this assumption that, oh, we're rapping in English, it's gonna translate, but not really. It didn't really translate. And in the if you listen to like a lot of old school stuff in the very early beginnings, there was a lot of guys rapping in American accents. We had this kind of
Yeah.
issue with, and I don't think that was people trying to be something they're not. It's the influence. Hip
Yeah.
hop started in New York. You're listening to these guys. You want to do it. Guys started rapping in an American accent. Um, so the guy, like, if I think of, for example, when I started writing raps, I just thought, this is something I'm gonna do. Probably, I don't know if I'm ever gonna release anything. I'm just gonna make these songs. And then I heard st some UK artists who weren't
Uh-huh.
rapping in American accents because it's not for some reason it's something I never did. I'm not sure why, because most people, I would argue, started with American accents. At least people who are from the millennial generation and a bit older. But I never did. I think maybe because of like being in Ireland and traveling to so many places at a young age, I
Hmm.
was very aware of like my own voice, I guess. But there's a DJ in the UK called DJ 279. He used to have a hip hop show on a radio station called Choice FM. Can't remember the name of the show now, but it used to be on in the evenings, and he played a lot of like UK hip hop guys. So there's guys like TY, Roots Maneuver, Black Twang, Skinny Man, Rodney P. These are the guys that made me think, oh, I can actually release music
They
with
paved
a
the
with a,
way
with a
for
yeah,
the
I can release music
upcoming
with a
artists.
British accent and it's fine. I don't have to pretend
Yeah.
to be like I don't have to put on an American accent. I was like, all right, these guys are doing it with a British accent or
Yeah.
like Jamaican influence in there as well. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So those were my guys that really got me into like, okay, I'm gonna release music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so they
And I
opened the
really
doors.
respect that. I
Yeah.
really respect that. So just no, we shouldn't just jump on the bandwagon and copy others. And I mean that wasn't just copying, maybe it was just replicating the accent. But I think we by those artists, by choosing to use the British accent, they really created a new branch of rapping. And from them, we have these amazing rappers today in the UK.
Yeah,
But
because I think it's like you said, like there are cases where people are copying, but I also think in most cases it's subconscious influence. Because for example,
yeah.
I when I first went to Bosnia, first time it was my first year in Bosnia, I wanted to really dig into the hip hop scene in Bosnia,
Hmm.
and I found some really old songs from these Bosnian rappers who were rapping in Serbian accents. It's like I could really
Yeah.
hear that that's a Serbian
So the
accent, but this
same thing
guy's
happened
yeah.
2000 kilometers away.
I was like,
Yeah.
well, okay, so this is just a thing that happens. Whatever's the biggest scene in that, people
Yeah.
gravitate to it. And,
Yeah, yeah, because the Serbian in Serbia, the most artists I think came out of Serbia
yeah,
using the Serbian accent. And yeah, so basically people were listening to that. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, how you found this correlation. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. Yeah, so you went to Bosnia, and that's like that to many people, I think would be surprising. Like, why would someone from London, we here on the Balkans, we think of London and England as just, this great country, or like everything is perfect and the living standard is better. Like, why would someone, and then people say, like, why would someone come from England to here, when life is so much better on the other side of the tracks? So, would you like to explain your decision making there? Like, first, why did you decide to go there, and why did you stay there?
Yeah, to get to there, I have to go because when I went to Bosnia it was 2010, but to to understand how I ended up in Bosnia, I have to go back
Hmm.
a year f before that in 2009, which was the first time ever in the Balkans, which was Belgrade, Serbia.
Hmm.
And it was at the time like MySpace was booming at that time, and like I had a big buzz on MySpace. Like I had like over 100,000 MySpace friends,
Hmm.
and essentially there was I remember my dude I used to work with he was called Dragon the Don at that time, but he goes by Danny Drags now. He showed me this. It was a MySpace friend ad. So what it used to do was in MySpace they used to have like music charts.
Hmm.
So you could go to like the music charts and you would collect the profile IDs, and then you could send friend requests to link to send to friend requests to these artists, and then I would
Yeah.
they would have like loads of in some cases like a friends list. You could add their friends list, and it started building like
Yeah, it was
momentum
great
organically.
for a great social media platform for networking.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
with the friend requests that you were able to put like it wasn't a DM, it was like a tag message that came along with the friend
Hmm.
request. So I always used to figure out how to say hi, hello, or hello, how are you in every language, whichever where
Ah,
I
yeah.
was gathered. So I put Zdravo Kakos on the friend
Yeah.
request, and this rumor started. There's this black guy from London. He's a rapper and he speaks Serbian. I didn't know a word of Serbian. I just knew this because I googled it and said, okay, this is how you say it. So this started, and then people started adding me organically. Like, okay, who's this guy? And then I did a song with this duo. They were called Taboo from oh, I can't remember which city in Serbia they're from, but it's near. I believe it's near Novi Sad, but it's not Novi Sad. But anyway, I did a song with them
Uh-huh.
and recorded a song, did my vocals. It was on my first album that I released with OK Records, when it was called OK Records back then. And apparently, this song was played at a club night in Belgrade, and I got a message from Plema or Igor Plemic, or people better know
Hmm.
as Plema, and he was like, "Hey man, we heard this song, keep it moving. Like we wanna do a song with you. We wanna work with you." I was like, "Okay, cool." So we did like two songs together, and then I was in my final year of university. I was doing in my film degree, and we could make a film about whatever we wanted. So I decided to like kill two birds with one stone. I said, okay, I'm gonna go to Serbia, do a hip hop documentary about Serbian hip hop, shoot the music video with the duo. Well, they were originally called G Thugs, and then they changed their name to Backyard, which was Plema and or DJ Chewu. Now he wasn't a DJ at that point though, and so I remember before we went to make our films, we had to give presentations about what our films were about. And I remember when I got up to do my presentation in front of the class, the professor's like, "Okay, so Nick, what's your film about?" I said I'm making a documentary about Serbian hip hop. The room was
Yeah.
silent. What? What Serbian? What?
What?
Serbian hip hop. She's like, what's that? What's Serbian hip hop? It's hip hop made by people in Serbia. Say, but how you gonna make this documentary? I'm going to Serbia. You're going to Serbia? Yeah, I've got my ticket ready. I'm going there in February. They're like, oh, be careful. You might get shot there. It's dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. So I was perfectly fine until that point, and people were telling me to be on guard. So I remember being on the plane like worried now because everybody's telling me it's
Yeah,
dangerous,
yeah.
and got there, it was amazing. I had I was greeted with warmth. Plema had a card with my name and my name on it. He was like,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I don't know what dangerous place that these people were telling me about.
Yeah, there were countless stereotypes back then. I mean, maybe there still are about Serbia, but I'm glad that you realized that we are one of the most hospitable countries, I mean, in the world. When someone comes to Serbia, they always have a great time. Like,
Yeah, like I
I,
remember nobody that the 2 weeks I was there, nobody let me pay for anything.
yeah,
Nobody let me pay for anything. I'm going to the clubs. I'm like, no, no. I remember one club we went into.
yeah, we fight over
Yeah,
who's gonna pay. Like,
yeah, the guy
it's
went up to the guy in the bar. He's like, don't charge this guy. Put it on my tab. I'm like, okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah,
from
yeah.
from from that moment, I said, okay, I want to discover more of this place. So that summer, or it was the following summer, I went to Zagreb. No, was it that summer? I believe it was that summer. Maybe it was that summer. I went back to Serbia and then I went to Zagreb. Yeah, I went to Zagreb the following summer, and then in Zagreb, and my boy Enis through a mutual friend in Zagreb. He's from Bihać, so like 2 hours away from Zagreb, and we met. I think that day was me, Enes, and Perla. We met each other that same day. I thought they knew each other from before, but it was the MySpace connection. We all connected on MySpace. So I stayed in touch with Enes like for like a year after meeting him, and then he told me he was um he was going to Sarajevo to start a label slash production company. They were trying to do a startup, and he's like, "Yeah, you do music, you've done film studies, like this is down up your lane." I was finishing university. I'd finished university, in fact, and I was like, "What am I doing?" I wasn't working at the time. I'm like, I saved up a lot of money just from what I was doing, like shooting music videos for people locally, and I said, "Why not?" Like Zagreb was great, Belgrade was great.
Yeah.
Let me go to Saturday once and see what happens.
And you fell in love with Sarajevo.
Yeah, and it was
Love
I
at
think
first sight.
it was perfect timing because it was this moment of like a lot of university leavers here in UK at the time, like finished university and were struggling to find work and
Mhm.
got over here. And then when I reached Sarajevo, I'm like, there's people with not just problems, but with worse problems than mine, but they're getting on with life. They're having a good time, in fact. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I complaining about? What am I complaining about? I
Yeah.
think that was inspirational for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, lots of students, I think that's a huge problem today. I see young people don't travel enough. I think traveling is one of the most important things you can do in your life. Whenever you feel like you have this existential crisis, you don't know what
Yeah,
to do, like just travel, and by discovering other places, you discover yourself. And people can see now when you tell this story how this trip, these multiple trips inspired you. You know, they just were like a breath of fresh air. And especially when someone is a creator, they need new inspirations, and they're not going to find the inspiration in their bedroom or in the same house they're living in. They just have to go to places and look for it. So when you came to Sarajevo, like, did you have any culture shocks?
Yes, but not as many as I was expecting.
Uh-huh.
Because one of the things from the first year in Sarajevo, I was there for 9 months altogether. By the end of the 9 months, I realized for as many culture shocks as there were, because of my my African heritage, there was also lots of things I related to because there was lots of similar cultural traits that Africans share.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this actually isn't that different.
Yeah.
It's really not that different.
Yeah. I think especially when you look at the families, like the togetherness that we have,
Yeah.
I think there are more similarities than differences.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
There are obvious differences, but there's way more similarities.
Yeah. 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 Like for me, one of the biggest culture shocks that I experienced was in London. So because I studied there, and in fact, we studied, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we studied at the same uni,
Yeah,
like
Middlesex Uni,
Middlesex University.
but
Yeah.
I think you were on the new campus though.
Uh-huh. So you were on the
Yeah,
old one.
yeah.
Where was the old one?
The old one was I was at Cat Hill campus, which closed down now. I think it's
Uh-huh.
apartments. But I also I had to I had to do summer school to get credits because I was missing
Uh-huh.
credits. That was at Trent Park,
Uh-huh.
Trent Park still exists, but it's no longer
Mm-hmm.
Middlesex
Mm-hmm.
campus. Yeah,
Yeah, so I went to my campus was in Hendon.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so I was there for like a year for student exchange. And basically I mean, there were lots of culture shocks, but one in particular was when it was a friend's birthday there. So one British guy, he celebrated his birthday, and he invited us to go to this restaurant, and he said something like, I'm taking you to this Italian restaurant, let's all go together. And then, I went there, and at that time, I was a student, so I wasn't, when it came to money, I wasn't the best. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
really had to be careful with my spending, for a Serbian guy going to the UK, the prices there are sky high when it comes to housing and things like that. And also, of course, restaurants, bars. So basically I was like, cool, he has my dinner is settled, let's go there. And then when the time came for us to leave, he said like, okay, guys, let's pay now. And I'm like,
yeah, okay,
what? I was expecting, he said, I'm taking you to the restaurant, which by the way isn't a bad thing. But for people who from Serbia, when someone in Serbia tells you, I'm taking you out, I'm taking you to dinner for drinks, even you don't have to say that, you just invite someone.
yeah.
And sometimes people expect you to pay for it. So that was like a huge culture shock for me. And it relates to your story also, because you came here, you didn't spend a single dinar, yeah, for a week, because people are just so warm and hospitable and they want you to have the best time. And I'm not saying that this friend didn't want me to have the best time. This is just a cultural difference. So I was just shocked, because I'm not used to that. But of course, in the UK, I would say that that's normal. I mean, and it makes sense because the prices are much higher when you want to, go out and like eat out and have drinks. So like a beer here in Serbia, I think now is like 3 or 4 pounds. There, it can be from 10 upwards. So it makes sense that he's not going to treat everyone for his birthday because it's going to be like 1,000 pounds just to treat a couple of people. So yeah, but yeah, that's one like culture shock. Anything else that you remember? Something that was just so surprising to you seeing in
Because
Bosnia, Serbia.
like because of the amount of cultural similarities with African
Uh-huh.
culture, there was more things that I just laughed at. Oh, that's the same. Like people are when friends
Yeah.
or family are discussing Africans, they're very loud. People in Balkans are also very loud, very expressive. But what did shock me was when it comes to swearing and
The amount of
how,
swearing.
the amount, but also the contextual use.
Yeah.
I remember uh, sitting at dinner table with I was at the house of the guy whose home studio I used to record Sarajevo because I did more,
Hmm.
in fact. He was in a crew at that time called oh man, the name has gone out of my head. Me and Ennis did a music video for them. Maybe it'll come back to me. But we were out there, we were at his house having a dinner with it was him, I think it was like two other guys from his crew, his mom, dad was there having this meal, and then he's having this conversation with his mom, and they're disagreeing about something. And then she says, "Yep, empty matter." And I was like, "Yep, empty matter." Wait, what? Why would his mom tell him
Yeah.
why would his mom tell him that? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I can see that. Like to us, it's normal, but when you look at it from a foreigner's perspective, it's just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, I remember saying to him afterwards, "Well, your mom just told you, fuck your mom, but she's your mom. I don't get it."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are worse
Yeah,
swear words than that.
but it
But
was
that one is
it wasn't
yeah.
it wasn't the the phrase itself. It was the context of
Yeah.
his mother telling him that. I'm like, but she is your mother. Why would she
Yeah.
say that?
Yeah, friendly fire. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was one of the like once I understood like the culture more, I'm like, okay, it makes sense to me now. But at the time, I'm like, okay, I don't
Yeah.
know what's
Yeah,
going
of
on.
course, yeah. Like also the swear words with the God, like
Yeah,
yeah, but the book,
yeah,
things like that. Yeah.
yeah.
I heard from someone that our swear words are very similar to the ones used in the Arab
Okay,
countries.
yeah, I've heard this
Like
before as
like
well.
that's
Yeah.
something I think that we got from maybe the Turkish rule because they ruled over us for like centuries. And they also like using those swear words with mother, like and people say that just for the fun of it. They don't always like have to be offensive. They just it's sometimes like a catchphrase for people. Yeah.
Do you know another one
And
that
yeah.
I don't know if I can say it was a cultural shock, but it was a cultural thing that I wrestled with for a while. Idim on a kafu.
Hmm.
Because first of all, when people were like, hey, yeah, idim on a kafu, like let's go for coffee. Like it was, I realized, okay, it's not about the coffee. Like just hang out.
Yeah.
We might
Yeah.
maybe somebody tells me idim on a kafu and we don't even drink coffee. We just
Yeah.
we walk or something. We don't like. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's not even about the coffee. It's just let's
Yeah.
hang out. Because in the UK, if you're saying let's have a coffee, we're going to the cafe for
Yeah,
sure.
they're like, where's the coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the
Yeah.
secondary part was the point when people would say, like somebody you haven't seen in a while, you see them on the street, and then they're like, yeah, blah blah blah, catching up, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, call me like idim on a cafe, and so I started to take it as, oh, okay, so we're gonna hang out at some point, and then that person wouldn't call you, or you
Uh-huh.
call them and they wouldn't have time. They say they don't have time or whatever, and then I said,
Yeah, they say it out of courtesy. Yeah.
yeah, but you told me you didn't want a calf, so why are we not hanging out then?
Yeah, that is a habit here. Like you, whenever you meet someone, like let's say a childhood friend, and then you have like 5 minutes to spare, and you talk to them, and you're like, oh yeah, we should really hang out. I think that happens also. I see it in the movies a lot, in American movies and TV shows. So maybe, yeah, maybe it's something that it happens here for sure, but I think it also happens abroad.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like,
suppose if I had to give a UK equivalent, it would
hmm
be when you bump into someone, you say, "Yeah, I'll see you later.
yeah,
See you later." Maybe I don't see you
yeah,
for the next 5 years. Maybe
yeah,
that's the UK equivalent. I'll see you later.
yeah.
Like I have no plans to to see you later. But and you know what's funny actually? When in the 80s when um I lived in North London, Northwest London. I was born in Camden, even though I grew up mostly in
Wow,
Northeast.
in Camden, that's my favorite part of London.
Yeah, Camden Town. There was a private
Yeah.
hospital, and which doesn't exist anymore. I think it was an office building the last time I checked. I don't
hmm
know what's with it now, but at that time, I remember my mother was like dating this guy, and they he brought her back home from the date, and they're talking this and that, and he said to her, so yeah, I'll call you later, speak to you later, and she sat by the phone
hmm
like for the rest of the evening. Like she made sure she
Yeah.
was near the phone. There was no, we didn't have
Yeah.
mobiles at the time, so she was made sure like we're watching the TV, and then it was like the middle of the following week. He calls. He's like, yeah, so what do you want to do this weekend? And she said, what do you mean this weekend? I waited for you the whole day last week, and you
Yeah.
didn't call. He said, what do you mean? You said I'll speak to you later. Oh, what do you mean? He said, yeah. I just meant that I'll speak to you at some point. I didn't mean the
In the
same day.
future. Yeah, yeah.
She said,
Not,
why? She said, why would you say speak to you later then?
yeah. Later is relative. Yeah. Yeah, there are just some things you can't take literally, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I well, also like some things that I hear about the people, not just in England, but in like Western Europe in general. They say you've probably heard this, like they are much colder than the
Yeah,
people in the Balkans and Eastern Europe. Like people in the Balkans are warmer.
yeah,
Would you agree with that? Like
yeah,
in your experience?
Gen yeah, definitely. I would say, um, although in like UK particularly, it's interesting because I would say in the north of England, north of the UK in general, people are warmer than in the south.
Mm-hmm.
And which is interesting because there's often this correlation between the warmth of people and the weather. Like when you go to
Uh,
Spain, for example, the south of Spain, people are really
yeah,
bubbly and
yeah.
everything, and but in the UK it's the opposite because the north has worse weather, but somehow they're more hospitable than in the south.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what the thing is.
Maybe because the South, would you agree? The South is more urban, and then
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Could be, but there's yeah, I suppose. I mean, there's urban parts of the north, but it's still not on the same level. The towns are
hmm
smaller. They're
yeah,
smaller. Yeah, the cities are smaller.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
that's
like
it.
my experience in London in particular, I mean, I would say that mostly I had a wonderful experience. I've made lots of good friends, and they were definitely warm, like very like opening, and they basically I felt like I wasn't far from home being there. Of course, wherever you go, you will meet someone who's friendly and someone who's unfriendly, but I like to remember the good ones, and I'd say I've made some friendships that are gonna last, I think, for the entirety of my life. And also, being a student there, being there for the first time, and that was 2018, I was just lost, like London, people don't realize this, but London is like a country. London has more citizens than the entirety of Serbia, like
Yeah, 8.9
eight,
million.
nine,
Yeah,
10 million. So it's crazy there. And it's also not so densely populated, like because London has more houses. than buildings. It's not like New York that has, I don't know, thousands of skyscrapers. London has, I mean, in the center, like the Shard, buildings like that, but mostly it's houses. And so it's huge, like, and there you can really get lost. Like I remember a couple of times I had this iPhone, this version of the iPhone, I think it was like iPhone SE, the first one that came out. And it was terrible when it was cold outside, like the battery would always die. And I remember I was in the center of London and it just died. It was like mid-December. And I'm thinking like, how am I going to get home? Because we're so dependent today on technology. It's not like the old days where you would just, I'm like, how am I going to get home from the center of London to, I was in Cricklewood.
Cool, but okay.
Yeah. I had
Uh,
my, yeah, student dorm there. And I'm like, and luckily, I met some nice people and they were all, you know, very helpful, told me basically everything I needed to know. But imagine not no, not no, being able to speak English. Like,
yeah.
what would you do? Yeah. So yeah, it's quite. I would say that the people are. I think when you are warm, you will meet warm people. I like to say it that way. Like you will. People say opposites attract, but I wouldn't say that that's always the case. I think
Yeah, it's not always the
when
case. In the
yeah
context that you're
yeah
speaking about, I agree with you. I think
yeah
the issue of like when people say people in London are colder or UK in general, definitely London, bigger city.
yeah
I think that there is truth to that, but I think that's an initial thing. It's
yeah
like in the case that you mentioned, oh, you needed help. If you're kind of a warm person. Somebody's gonna help you.
yeah.
You're polite and
If you're
everything. Somebody's gonna
nice,
help you. You're not exactly.
yeah
You know, but I think there's just this initial distance people have from people they don't from strangers on the street. That is, for example, first time walking down the street in Sadio, people are smiling at
yeah
me. I don't know these people. They're just like, oh, this, but like people are trying. They're interested. Like, oh, what's this guy doing in Bosnia? People are, especially that time in 2010. Like now, there's more of an influx of people from different places. But in 2010, to see another foreigner walking down the street in Sarajevo was quite rare, especially to see another black person like on top of that.
yeah
So, whereas in London, it's like you see everybody. I walk
yeah
down my
yeah
street. um, You've got a Turkish store around the corner. The petrol station across the street from me, it's from Pakistan. Like, so it's just you see so much of everything. It's like,
yeah
whatever, you know. So it's goes back to what you're saying about being densely populated. It creates this a certain cultural mindset. And I the first time in 2006, I was in Trinidad and Tobago, and I remember getting on the bus, or going to Port of Spain, the capital. Getting on the bus, and it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. This lady sat down next to me. I said, "Oh, good morning," and I said, "Excuse me." She
mm,
said, "Oh, good morning." I said, "Oh, have we met? Do I know you from somewhere?"
yeah
She said, "No, no, I'm just telling you good morning." I said, "Why?"
yeah.
And
You
like,
immediately like what's happening? Like is
and in hindsight, I know how rude that came across as, but I
yeah.
genuinely wasn't trying to be rude. I'm just like in London, because somebody just saying good morning, so like bubbly and everything. I would
You think
assume,
they want something from you?
yeah, like, oh,
That's
I've
what you
met,
would
or we've
think.
we've met or
Yeah
something.
yeah
And then the bus went crazy. Oh my God, you're so rude, this lady. And I was like getting into semi arguments with people. I know I don't know.
yeah
My girlfriend at the time was like really, really embarrassed, and she said to me, why didn't you just say good morning?" and I was like arguing and arguing about it. And then at the end of the day, I thought about it and I said, you know what? I was just caught off guard. It was a cultural difference.
Yeah,
Now I'm the guy saying good morning on
to
the bus
everyone.
to people.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's also here in Serbia, when you go into a store, if it's like a smaller store, you can see the people, they always welcome you. They say good morning, good day. You say the same. When you leave, you say goodbye. And that's something I didn't see in London to
Right.
as you didn't. So I think because there's like so many people there and so many cultural differences, I think it's just expected that you have that kind of situation. Whereas here, sometimes like if you see someone for the first time, I know some people like they just say good day for no reason. Like, or in the store, if you see someone older, you know, they, especially when you walk a dog, they come up to, like pet the dog, and they say, oh, and then you start a conversation. I don't think you have that in London, like that kind of openness maybe. And
No,
I
no,
see that also in the example of like relationships. A lot of people told me that in London, like when you have a couple, they're not so big on PDA, being touchy feely in public places, like holding hands or kissing in public. Like that's one of the things that was a huge shock for me. In the first year of staying in London, I think I just saw like once that people kissed on the street. But here you see it everywhere. Like, you go to Kalemegdan and every second bench has a young couple, kissing. Like it's like a romantic film everywhere. And in London, you don't see that. Like, I mean, of course, appropriately doing it, not like,
yeah, no, I know what
having a
you mean.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's also, and I know some of my friends confirmed it. Like they said, even with the people, the like people that they dated, they were never comfortable showing their, love in public. Like they were more like they liked it to be private. Have you heard these comments maybe?
Yeah, not directly, but now that you mention it, it's like often growing up here, people say, "Oh no, you like oh, you don't do that." Like no, nobody said
Uh-huh.
like, we never had discussions about it. It was just this thing that you don't
Yeah, it's just
do.
normal,
Yeah,
the
it was just
normal
how
way.
like if like
Yeah.
when you would see people do it, you'd be like, "What's going on?" kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
like we
get a
didn't we
room.
yeah you get yeah that's the thing that you would hear sometimes. Sometimes like I don't know, you're on a train or something. Somebody on the other side on the train would say, "Oh, go get a room." Go get a room, go on. Yeah, so yeah. I never really thought about it, but now that you mention it, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you wouldn't see it, like it's rare to see it on the bus or train here, but some places like the park,
Yeah, no, but
or
even the
if someone
park,
is saying goodbye
yeah.
to their girlfriend, boyfriend.
Like I use the train as an more extreme, but even
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
park, on the street, at the bus stop,
Or just seeing someone hug, like it's like I thought about that a lot. It's like we're in this dystopian film where people are not allowed to show emotions on the street. So yeah, that was one of the differences that I noticed. But what I really liked is the diversity. Like you can um, find people from all corners of the world, from various cultures, and like you go on the bus and you just hear at least 10 different languages
right.
on one bus ride. And then meeting the people, getting to talk to these people that came from afar and just sharing experiences and finding similarities, finding differences, and just because every person you meet is like a whole new world. And then of course, when you're in one country like Serbia, foreigners come here and there, but still we are mostly Serbians here. And then um, you kind of you hear the same stories being repeated over and over. But then you go to London and then you hear a story. I don't know. For example, the first one that comes to mind was when my friend talked about he's originally from London, but he lived on Madagascar for a
Okay.
period. And then he's a painter, and he used to, paint these jungles and animals and the people there. And the people, because they were from a tribe, um, they got scared at one point when he was, painting, because he painted so realistically. He painted them so realistically that they thought that he trapped their soul on the
Oh.
canvas. When are you gonna hear that in, like here? I mean, I hear some interesting stories, but story as interesting as that, I don't. Like it's rare to hear, unless someone is also a traveler and then they went somewhere. But things like that, and when I hear that, I'm like, I'm really happy that I came here. I'm really happy that I decided to partake this journey, because the people and the experiences and the events there, and also um, the access to, I think, like conferences and workshops. Like you have these apps. I remember I had this one app called Eventbrite, and when I was bored, I just went on the app and I typed, for example, music. And then I have like a list of 50 different events happening related to music in London today. And most of them are free. And that kind of freedom and that kind of choice was also like amazing to me. Like I never got bored. Whenever I was bored, I was like, okay, let me find something interesting to do. And I always found it. And so that's one of the things why that really inspires me, and what I liked about London. And you have that also in Belgrade. Belgrade is also a very lively city, and Belgrade's nightlife is one of the most popular
Yeah.
nightlifes in Europe. And yeah, but maybe it's just a smaller scale still, because it's a smaller city and we're still
Yeah,
developing.
but
Yeah,
I would say that like for if I'm thinking about Londoners particularly and other parts of like I know a lot of Londoners that love Belgrade nightlife and prefer it to London nightlife, even though
hmm,
there's more like London's a bigger
yeah,
city and whatever. I mean, come on, you're gonna get like really great nightlife in Belgrade, and it's cheaper for a Londoner.
yes,
It's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper, and also just to be honest, going back to this issue of like people being cold, you're gonna go out and generally speaking, yeah, there's moments you're always gonna find like assholes or wherever you go, but in general, like it just feels like people are when you go out in Belgrade, people are out to have a good time.
yeah.
Like there's
We always make time for fun.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
People are really there to have fun. Whereas not that you can't. Of course, you can have fun in London, but there's an element of it depends on which type of clubs you're going to, I guess. But there's a
Yeah.
certain type of club where it's like everything is about the appearance of having fun and the appearance of being cool
Yes.
and it's not they're not nobody's really having fun. It's just
Yeah, yeah. They just want to post the story, and yeah, post on Snapchat and whatever, and then they want to be seen. I think that's the point,
that's it. Yeah,
not to have fun.
right.
And also FOMO, fear of missing out. That's also why they go out. Yeah. Yeah, of course, it depends on the person. So I guess, I coming there as a foreigner, I knew that my time was limited. I knew I had 1 year, and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna discover this place. And I think that's the tourist's mindset. also you coming to Belgrade, I would assume that you wanted to use every minute to discover like Kalemegdan and the rivers, because that's special about Belgrade that it sits on two rivers, and these museums. And Belgrade is one of the oldest cities in Europe. It's like it's an ancient city. Like back, I think it was like 2,000 years ago. It even had a different name, Singidunum. A lot of Serbia is famous for many emperors that were born on its territory. So I guess that also being an old city has its perks, and just the cultural richness to it is what adds. Yeah. And so yeah, you're also a huge traveler, and because as I said in the beginning, this is a podcast where we like to bring people of valuable and interesting experiences. And I mentioned how I see young people today, they're not traveling a lot, they're not discovering the world. What would you say to them? Like, how would you advise them? I guess their usual excuses, I don't have the money to travel, but you and I both know that you don't need, I don't know, millions or thousands of euros to travel. You can always pitch in some way and travel. So what would you say to those people that are not so motivated on traveling?
I would say take 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 the time or organize your time to try it once.
Hmm.
If it's not for you, fine. But just because
Yeah.
this thing, I don't have the money. That's been an age old excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the first time when I arrived in Sarajevo, I was just saving. I, I was saving every little bit of money I could to get there. I just wanted to get out there and just experience it. I already had a great time in Zagreb and Belgrade,
Hmm.
so it was like I didn't go out really. I was like I didn't like I didn't really spend money on anything I didn't need essentially.
Yeah.
I just knew I'm saving, and in September I'm going to Sarajevo, so
Yeah.
it's just do it. Like, and then if like for most people, I'm sure they're not gonna regret it. I mean, there's some places you'll like more than others, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I guess they could research, places and just see which ones offer what they're interested in. So if they
yeah,
like
yeah. I say
culture,
that's
museums,
good.
yeah.
Do the research.
Yeah.
Don't do it like how I did it. Sarajevo, I did no research. I just knew. To be honest with you, even
But
even
trips like
Belgrade,
that can, we see from your example, trips like that where you don't do any research can also be fulfilling. Like
that's
you will
true.
be pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
That's true. But like, I wasn't disappointed. But it was it was interesting because the first day of arrival, I remember speaking with my boy Ennis because like he said, "Oh, we're starting this company, this label."
Hmm.
I arrived at Sarajevo Airport, and he just looked like there was just this fear in his eyes. I said, "What's going on?" He said, I'll tell you when we get outside." We get into the car. His cousin came to pick us up because the whole idea was he because he's in Bihać, he's already in Bosnia. He's like, "I'm gonna look for an apartment for us when you arrive."
Hmm.
Get into the car. He's like, there's no apartment." I'm like, "So what do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, I've come from London." He's like, "Yeah, there's no apartment." So what we're gonna do is like we're gonna stay at my cousin's house tonight, and then tomorrow morning we're gonna look for somewhere. I'm already thinking to myself, what have I got myself into? What, we went to a cafe the next morning, and we were going through the newspaper. Yeah, the coffee. We're just going through the newspaper. We're calling up places. We see your
Hmm.
advertisement in
You didn't
Reading.
have Airbnb back then.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody picked up their phone until midday, and then see, Amir, who's really cool. I'm still in touch with him now. He picks up the phone and we're telling him our situation, and he's like, "Well, how long are you guys gonna be here?" So we're not sure. Like we're trying to start this company.
Hmm.
He's like, I want somebody who's gonna at least be here for a year. So I don't know. And then he said that there was a guy with us, Adnan, who's many people will more know as Don Adnan. I don't think he makes music anymore. But he took the phone and he said, "Listen, I got my friend here from London, and he has £500 in his wallet right now." I mean, it's like, okay, where are you? Where are you? I'm coming to pick you up.
Money talks.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's great that you met him. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but realizing that back then they didn't have these things that we call stan na dan, like flat for a day or Airbnb or booking.com. So it was maybe it still wasn't even an idea.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, it was tough. I mean, it was expensive to stay at these hotels, but it's good that you met some nice people that helped you out. I mean, that's those people are just priceless,
yeah,
priceless for sure.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like I remember when I came to London the first night, uh like before that I didn't travel a lot and it was mostly traveling with my parents, with someone older. So I was still, I was like 20, 21, and when I came there, it was just like I came to a new planet. Everything was different and but luckily I had a friend that reached out and she basically took me from the airport to my student dorm and showed me everything and even talked to the people there, the workers, just to make sure that I'm, up to date with everything and everything I have to do. So, yeah, like I could write a book about all those nice people that helped me settle there and just, you know, just feel welcomed. Yeah.
I'm glad you had that experience in London because I've heard a lot of
Hmm.
people. Can I say a lot? Maybe not a lot, but a significant amount of people who say, "Oh, they came here and they didn't feel welcome."
Ah,
Yeah, I've heard that more so than I've ever heard it the other way around when people go to the
oh, well,
Balkans,
I'm
basically.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
And
so
what's the most common like story that you hear?
I know it's a mixed bag. I guess the thing with I guess the thing with it, I guess it also depends on the context of how you came here. Like in your
Hmm.
coming as a student, I think is pretty cool because
Yeah.
you're gonna make friends with other students and things like that. I think when people also when people, especially if they come when they're older, if they come to London, like just I just want to change and I want to they get a job in London, something that I hear regularly, and it makes sense that it can be
Yeah.
difficult. It can
Like
be
if you come to
difficult
London
to
for work, it's totally different approach.
yeah. If you come
And
for
the
work, for
people
example,
yeah.
it takes a while for before people make real friends.
Yeah.
Like you meet a lot of people and whatever, but it takes a
And
while for
also
them.
like your level of English also is a
Yeah,
factor. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that also helped me out because when I came there, my English was pretty advanced. I was studying English language and literature, so that helped me out. And I remember when I got there, everyone thought that I was Italian because I had like long hair. And
oh, okay, I can see that. I see that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Even today, some people think, yeah. T- Usually, people when I go into a store here in Belgrade, they tell me many times they don't tell me dobar dan, they say hello. I look to them like a foreigner, yeah. So I mean, that's fine by me. And So now we mentioned English, which is a great segue into the next topic. That is, as I said, we have lots of similarities. So we studied at the same uni. We both are called Nicola. You're just with an S.
But
And one,
I believe it's the English equivalent, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there are. I think there is Nicola in English, but there are
Yeah, but Nicola in English is a female name.
female. Yeah, it's a female name in most cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Russian, I think it's Nikolai. So yeah, there are variations. So another big similarity, another thing that we have in common is that we're both teachers, ESL teachers. For those of you who don't know, ESL is short for English as a second language. So Nick and I actually, and we even worked in the same company for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tutor ABC. That's also a funny story because if I remember well, you also weren't so happy with the way they handled their and also treated their teachers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
although at the time when we met, I was
yeah,
pretty happy with it, but I don't know
yeah.
if you
I
know because
remember. Yeah,
there was a corporate takeover of the company because it was a
yeah,
Taiwanese company. When that was started to happen happening in the background, I was just seeing changes happening, and I was like, okay, this is not the same company anymore, which made sense. It literally
yeah,
was no longer the same
yeah. It
company.
wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we had a lot of experience so working for this Chinese company as English teachers. And where else did you work as a teacher? Like, where did
In
your teaching career start?
in Istanbul,
Mm-hmm.
Istanbul, it was actually. When did I get certified? I got certified in 2012. Was it 2012 or 2013? And so, but I didn't actually do my first teaching position until 2015 in
Mm-hmm.
Istanbul.
So
Yeah,
that's where you made your first steps.
and that was actually also connected to Bosnia because
Uh-huh.
I was um. Let me make a disclaimer first. I am not a Scientologist, but I was helping this um, group of Scientologists in Sarajevo
Uh,
that were they have a book called The Way to Happiness. It's like
mhm,
a leaflet, a booklet about how to live an ideal, happy life, essentially. And they have it in different languages. One of the languages is Bosnian. So
mhm,
they were essentially looking for like a guide or a helper or someone to help with this project. And I got this email saying, hey, with this, they weren't exactly. I didn't know the connection to Scientology straight away
uh-huh.
actually, but
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, we're doing this and that, and we want to promote this book. It's like a self help book, and we need someone who knows Sarajevo well. And we found you online. We came across your videos on YouTube and this.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, cool. And one of the guys who I'm actually still friends with now. He was he had already been in well other parts of Bosnia. There was a Scientologists sent out a help relief group because there was flooding in parts around of Bosnia at that time earlier that year. So he when I arrived in Sarajevo that year, did the campaign with them on different radio stations and whatnot, and then they went back to United States or the different countries where some of them were from. I stayed there in Sarajevo with this guy Elaine, and his plan was he wanted to live in Bosnia basically, but he didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
papers. And long story short, this there was like a ex general who was helping him find papers. Who told him on the last day, I can't do it basically. And he had one day to leave, and the only place because he's from South Africa, and the only place he could go to without a visa that was close enough was Istanbul. So I helped him pack up his stuff, took a plane to Istanbul. When he got to Istanbul, he realized he didn't want to go back to South Africa. So I'm not sure what the actual connection is, but in Istanbul, there's a lot of ESL teachers from South Africa. I'm not
Ah,
sure what the background is with that, but there just is. So he bumped into this South African guy in a bar who was the head of a branch of language school called
mhm.
English Time. He told the guy situation about South Africans. He said, "Okay, I'll give you a job." He started working the next week, and then he knew I
Cool.
was satisfied, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about coming up to Istanbul and working here?" I told
Yeah.
this guy about you, and I spoke to him the following week, and then I got the job. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, that's you mentioned the butterfly effect in
yeah,
the beginning,
yeah,
and that really explains how your journey just went from one small decision to the next one and the next one and the next one, and how you were just your openness to traveling and just meeting new people, making these new acquaintances, how that shaped you up. And yeah, it's and then you got to Istanbul, you started teaching. And what were maybe some of the biggest challenges that you had as a teacher, you know?
the first, to be honest, the first 2 months maybe was a nightmare for me.
Ah.
It was a nightmare. I was like every class I was sweating profusely. It was I didn't really I didn't anticipate, and maybe it was impossible to anticipate how challenging it would be in the beginning to find my rhythm, find my style
Hmm.
as a teacher. And I had this naive belief that, oh, I've performed on music on stages. My first international show was in
Yeah.
Republic of Moldova, like 1,000 people plus there. It's going to be easy to stand. If I can stand on a stage in front of 1,000 people, what's 30 people in a
Yeah,
class? That's
that's
easy.
nothing compared to this.
No, 1,000 people on a stage was easier because with the music, I have your songs. I know the lyrics. I've done it. I realized, but although it's still kind of related. Basically,
Yeah.
I quickly realized, just like just like with performing on the stage, preparation is key.
Yes.
Preparation is key. Doesn't matter how much. Yeah, I got a certificate. I passed the exam. Cool. Now
Yeah.
prepare for
You're
your
a native
classes.
speaker, your English is perfect.
Yeah, but
That's also, yeah.
and being a native speaker as an ESL teacher, it's a gift and a curse. The gift
Yeah.
is obviously you got that innate ability to get people to speak naturally, but the reality is that when it comes to the 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 deeper grammatical knowledge,
Mhm.
I would argue that majority of native speakers, regardless of how well they speak, how well they write, don't know a lot of the
Yeah.
deeper grammar. We just do it instinctively because
You
we've
do it
always,
naturally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what conditionals were until I did my ESL teaching course. I remember the day the teacher said, "Okay, so today I'm gonna teach you how to teach conditionals." And I said, "What is that? What is a conditional?" She's like, "You use it all the time." I'm like, "Really? Okay." So
Yeah.
that part for me, like, although I passed those modules, it wasn't natural for me to think about English in that way. Oh, a conditional,
Yeah.
and so that was the biggest challenge, cheating the grammatical
Just
elements at the beginning.
deconstructing the language, the knowing
Yeah,
the
that was a big
linguistics
challenge.
that go on behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's also something that I say to people because there is, for example, the company that we worked at, Shooter ABC. I know that there was a big pay gap between the natives and non-natives. So sometimes even maybe 5 or 6 times less the non-natives were earning
yeah. I
per
remember
lesson.
when you
Yeah,
told me what you were earning, I was appalled. Because I
yeah,
was like, man, you have a degree in
Yeah.
What are we talking about? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, which is a shame. I mean, I'm not trying to say that we're, better. Maybe in some areas, yes, but of course, the native speaker has the perfect accent and their just life experience using English day to day, knowing, phrases that are maybe not written in the books. There are lots of pluses there, but there are also pluses to being a non-native and having to learn the language from scratch
Yeah,
as a second language. So
yeah,
then, because we crossed that bridge, we know what it takes to cross that bridge, and then we can explain it to the learner in the best way. So, yeah, I would say that I think we should be treated evenly, and I think that's what's necessary. And I think all the employers of these from these schools, language schools, should basically treat them the same. So not, I think that kind of special treatment is unfair.
yeah,
It should be based on the knowledge and the ability to transfer the knowledge.
yeah. I guess
Yeah.
where it comes from is this perception of you're a native speaker, so okay, this is gonna be a better quality class.
Yeah.
Mm, not really. That's not the be all and end all. It's a as you said, there are plus the advantages and disadvantages to it,
Yeah.
and I really get finding the if especially if you're we're talking about like an organization or a school that has natives and non-native speakers working there. I think the best way to go about it is find the balance of both. Use the
Yeah.
strength of both of those
Yes.
backgrounds. Because when I was
Combining
teaching
them.
in,
Yeah.
in, in, in Poland, for example, it was a small Lingo Plus franchise. The guy who ran the franchise and owned it, really educated guy. We're talking about like he kills me in the academic knowledge. Sure, he's got the masters and in linguistics and English language and all of that. Fine, but what I was trying to explain to him is there's certain things that you say that are just not they don't sound right.
Yeah.
And for example, I was teaching a class in a town called Sheps, like 40 minutes from village, maybe it's a village even, for 40
Mhm.
minutes from Warsaw. And I had a class of kids that were like 6 year olds. He wanted me to teach them the expression "what is more." I'm like, I get it, it's correct, but really, are we really forcing this on like what is more?
Yeah.
Like really, are we really? Let's get them to just make basic sentences
Yeah.
first.
You're trying to teach Shakespearean English
Yeah,
to toddlers and 5-year-olds. Yeah.
but he was so
Yeah.
adamant about this. Like,
That's you were 100% right there. Like there's so much of this vocabulary written in the textbooks that's unused, like the phrase "it's raining cats and dogs." Like I've never in all the years I've spent in London, I've never heard a single person say it's raining cats and dogs, and it rained a lot of times. So they
really, you never
usually
heard
say
that?
it's pouring. Did you hear otherwise?
Yeah, maybe it's a generational thing. Because I heard like lots of
Maybe maybe it's
my
outdated now.
yeah, because I heard a lot of my
Yeah.
teachers in school say that, and
So
yeah,
maybe yeah, it's not as trendy as it was before.
yeah,
But still, I see in the like contemporary textbooks, I see it's raining cats and dogs. Whenever you learn idioms, you have to learn that one. Like it's your standard, yeah, primary idiom. Like yeah, so there are examples like that. And when, for example, when I because I have a page on Instagram, English with Nicola, and there I promote our school's lessons. And I always say how in our lessons you will learn real English. And by real, I mean the English that's used now in London, in England. And I've been there, many times. So I know what's being used in those streets. And I think that's really important, just to learn. If you want to learn everyday English, you should learn these phrases. Okay, what is more is great, but that's more for maybe essay writing, more for the maybe giving some formal presentations. But if someone in the street asks you, like, how can I get to Camden, you won't say what is more or
Yeah, I mean,
stuff like that.
I've never heard anyone say that in the street. What
Yeah,
is more?
yeah.
I've never like okay, there's certain parts of
They're gonna
London
think
that you
like,
might be
oh,
able.
this guy is trying to be fancy or something.
Yeah, it's like, and I think like because another situation I tried to use as an example to the guy who was running the school just to bring my point across about how he should be
Yeah.
using my strength as a native speaker. He used to say that he used to use this expression, which I never mentioned before until he started pushing this textbook that he wrote. Actually, he wrote this textbook himself.
Mhm.
So I think that was part of the reason because it was
Yeah.
like the students
His
buy this
ego.
textbook as extra ego and also extra
Yeah.
money if they buy that textbook. But a lot of it was ego driven. So just to drive my point home a little bit, I pointed something out that he always says about like working out. He's like, oh, yeah, he came in on a Monday and he was like, yeah, last night I was in the gym. I did this workout. It was a massacre. And I said, well, so like loads of people were hurt or like tired. He said, no, no, no,
Yeah,
I'm talking
yeah.
about my workout was a massacre. And I said, you can't have a massacre by yourself. Like
Yeah.
a massacre implies multiple
Yeah.
people being killed, not
Yeah.
one person. But in
Yeah.
Polish, the direct translation
Yes.
would be massacre,
It makes sense in
what he was
Polish,
saying.
but not in English.
But not in England, right?
Yeah. Like, yeah, jebem ti mater.
Yeah.
In Serbian and in English, yeah, it wouldn't. You would just get punched or something if you say that. Yeah. Yeah, so that's something we also have to think about. I guess as non-natives, as we learn the language, sometimes we have these gaps and we fill them with our Serbian equivalents, and we don't realize that they are totally unnatural. Like if you say in England, I remember like lots of people said when you bought something new, like some new shoes, and they would say, "Oh, those shoes are sick." Like if you
Okay,
said
yeah.
that in Serbian, people would be like raising their eyebrows. What are you saying? Are they bad or something? So yeah, we really have to keep an eye on those phrases. And yeah, so you had those kinds of challenges just with these owners of these schools. Yeah, I guess that's something that you see with any kind of business. Like the owners, usually they think they know the best. They think they know everything, and that's one of the things that I really promised myself that I wouldn't come to. I wouldn't be that kind of owner or a director of a school. And I'm proud to say that I look at my teachers on the same level as me. Like I see us as a team, and also the students. I don't see them as just numbers, as just numbers that are giving me money. I see them as students, and they are students before else. So, and I think having that kind of mindset really creates this rapport, and it really shows the people that you care. And when you have that kind of togetherness, and when you show that you really care, I think then the people, it's just a win-win. People are going to stay longer and they are going to succeed with you. And today, uh like I've worked for lots of schools like you, and one of the reasons why I decided to open my school was because I was just unhappy with this, just the state of the schools, just using outdated programs, um, learning a language through memorization and not learning it as a skill. Would you agree that that is one of the biggest issues today in schools?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. But also, I think the key real key thing in what you
Mm.
said there is students first.
Yeah.
Everywhere apart from when I worked at Birch University in Elijah, every other place I've worked at, it's the other way. The students are customers or clients, and then they're students.
Yeah.
And this, look, I understand because it's a private business, it's not a government school. I get that part, but the problem in that dynamic is that in many cases the school then caters so much to what the student wants to the point of ignoring what the teacher needs to give an effective class. For example, in Turkey, you would have times where students would go to the main office and say, we want to replace a teacher in the class. And sometimes they were within their rights to say that.
Yeah.
But other times they just don't like. For example, the first complaint I remember, the first complaint I got in Istanbul in the English time was, we want to replace the teacher in this class because he's teaching too much. That was my
He's
first
teach.
ever complaint. I'm like, I'm teaching too. What does that
That's the
mean?
first time I've heard something like that.
They're like, and then so I went to the head teacher. I said, "What does he mean? I'm teaching too much. That you know, you gotta ease them in and this and that."
Hmm.
I get that, but also like you understand that I'm also a first time teacher. Can can I not? This is one clock. Can I? Is there no leeway there?
Yeah.
It's just no. Get him out of there. And it's like that's now also stunting my development as a teacher now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as a business owner, you have to be a good listener. You should listen to the comments, but the teacher shouldn't be secondary. Like you have to protect your teachers.
Yeah.
Of course, if they made a mistake, I mean, if it's something small, it's not the end of the world. But I think having that open conversation with the students are the ones that pay, but still, you know, the school is made of teachers and students. So the teachers should have their say and they should have the respect. And also, like these kind of situations happen. And sometimes the students, when they have these negative comments, many times you fix the problem by talking to them, not by changing, the teacher or changing the program, but just by listening to their perspective and just maybe trying to shift it. Of course, if you feel that shifting it will solve the problem, because being a student isn't just, I come to class and I get this knowledge, put in my head. It's having the right mindset. you know Having the right mindset is, I think, one of the biggest factors in learning a language, and not just language but anything. Having the right expectations, and also being, in your case, I think they I mean, how can a teacher teach too much? Like it has to be formal. Okay, you can ease them in, yeah, but at the end of the day, it has to be there needs to be this formality, and you have to, um, you can't be friends with them. That's the point. You can be
Yeah,
friendly but not their friend.
yeah, but and even
Yeah.
and like it with this case, to be honest, also I'll be honest as well. In the case of in Istanbul, I was the head teacher there also tried to sabotage me essentially.
Hmm.
He didn't like me from the beginning,
Uh-huh.
so he
So
knew
he was just waiting for something. Yeah.
yeah, and he I'm a first time teacher, and so they had that in the school they had levels 1 to 6.
Hmm.
Levels 1, 2, and 3 were taught by native Turkish teachers,
Hmm.
and then from levels 4 and upwards was native English teachers.
Hmm.
And he threw me in at like a level 5 or 6 class straight away. Like,
Uh-huh.
so he knows he just threw me in there, and like his thing was to get me out there as quick as possible.
Hmm.
That was his aim. And so, like, because in that situation when like he's teaching too much, okay, you just tell them, okay, look, maybe it was too much information for first class,
Yeah.
whatever. You,
Yeah.
he's gonna come back and give me, like, also give me a chance. Where like
Yeah.
this is what I love when I was,
Adjusting,
yeah,
adjusting to their needs. Like if they feel like maybe you've taught them too many words, or too much grammar in that one class, you just have a conversation and say, okay, Nick, maybe next time you can just learn the present continuous and then practice it for a few lessons
yeah,
and problem solved. Like um, I think it's important as a teacher to be coachable.
yeah,
And if someone makes a mistake, that doesn't mean they're a bad teacher, especially if it's their first lesson. I mean, as with anything else, you have to start somewhere. You can't start as an expert. You have to start as an amateur and then work your way up. So
yeah, yeah.
after
Like,
that, like, how was it a bumpy road? Did it continue there to be
what, in
difficult?
Turkey?
Yeah, in Turkey, in that school.
In that school, yeah, like as I said,
Hmm.
from when I started with explaining how I got to Istanbul, it was through my friend Elaine, who's from South Africa. A lot of the teachers there were South African, and the head teacher of that campus was South African. And to put a long story short, let's just say he's a South African guy who probably was upset when apartheid ended. Let's just to put it like
Ah,
lightly. So he, the moment I came in, he had this idea of who I was, and the fact that I was also a rapper as well. He always made
ah,
these jibes about, like, he used to tell me, don't wear jeans in class. I never wore jeans. Why are you telling me this? You
yeah.
used to always remind me of like the dress code and things that he didn't do to other people.
Yeah, he was passive aggressive.
Very, very,
Yeah.
very passive aggressive. Like, he used to do this thing where, okay, for example, the classes there were, you had two shifts. In the morning, it was a 2 hour class, so you had like 50 minutes, 10-minute
Mhm.
break, then 50 minutes. Then you had at night, in the evening classes, were 50 minutes, 10-minute break, 50 minutes, 10 minutes break, and then a 50 minutes. Like, these are long classes.
Mhm. Yeah.
These are, for the most part, people who are working full time, coming in the evening to try and improve their English. So there was one class, and this is where I'd already found my rhythm now at this point, and I was comfortable with this class. They were comfortable with me. I saw them, like, in the last 50 minutes of this evening class, they were fading away. They
Yeah.
were just, their attention was going over. Like, there was one guy who's there who was a police officer. I can only imagine what he's been through during the
Yeah. Yeah.
day.
Like coming after work,
Yeah. So
all
I
he
said, all
wants to
right,
do is just
everybody.
go and sleep and he has to learn English. Yeah.
I said, okay, everybody, close your books. There's a cafe across the street. I said, all right, we're gonna go to the cafe and we're gonna have a conversational session. We can all go to the cafe as long as we agree. We're gonna just speak in English, and when you make a mistake, I'm gonna correct you.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, okay, cool, let's do it. We went there. I saw somebody in the office looking at me, but nobody stopped me. So I said, okay. The next Monday, it's instead of coming to me and saying, Nick, if you want to take a class out of the off campus, like, you gotta make a plan in advance. You have to get
Hmm.
written permission. Instead of coming to me, I'll say, okay, next time I'll do that. He sent a staff email to everyone, big bold letters: do not take students off campus without prior permission. I'm like, you're talking to me. Why are you sending this to everybody?
Yeah. To everyone.
Just come to me and I'm gonna do it next
Yeah.
time. So after this email gets sent, I see him in the corridor and I say, So do we need to have a conversation? Is there a problem? He said, no, no, everything's fine. He smiled and said, "Oh, good." I'm like, okay. But I know you're talking about me. Nobody else did that.
Yeah. Yeah, such a coward.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like
And by the way, they were adults. All of them were adults, your
all of them were
students.
adults. Yeah.
So why would there be a problem? I mean, they're maybe, if they were younger, I could imagine that would be a problem, taking them outside of the school. Maybe that could be, security wise, not okay. But they're adults, they're tired. That was a great suggestion you made. That's something that I also did, by the way. Like I remember on multiple occasions, like I worked in these like small language schools, and then if it's too hot, like I remember one school didn't have the AC. So I said, let's go to the park, or let's go to the cafe, or let's just, let's go in nature and have a conversation lesson. And I think those lessons are like most remembered by students and
Yeah.
most appreciated, that kind of flexibility.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I found in the school in Turkey, they still had a similar grammar is important. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's not, but to be honest, a lot of the people coming to the classes had quite a solid understanding of English grammar. It's how they studied in school.
Yeah.
They just couldn't speak. So instead of just drilling grammar at them for 3 hours, let's get them to speak.
Yeah, let's get them to use that grammar. Grammar is it's like your set of tools. So, and you're right about that. It's the same situation in Serbia. So in primary and secondary school, all you talk about is grammar. And that's why rarely anyone knows how to speak English after their secondary school or even, uni. So, and it's one of the things that I like to mention on countless occasions to students. So a lesson, and not just to students but to teachers, because it's important to know. So English, like any language, it's a skill, and it's you have to learn English the same way you learn dancing or driving. You have to do it in order to become better at it. So you can't learn a language just by learning the present simple and when you use it and how you use it and how you construct it. So you need to give the students the opportunity to utilize the grammar or the vocabulary.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to teach someone how to drive just by having them as your passenger, and watching you drive.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, they could know how to do know how to do it theoretically.
Yeah,
They could maybe explain it to somebody, but they don't have the muscle memory to do it
yeah,
themselves.
yeah. They have to say the word. They have to use that sentence, to repeat it. Repetition is the mother of all skills. So we have to repeat the word correctly. You also have the situation where um, this is the most common with students that learn independently. They learn how to say a word incorrectly, and they said it so many times incorrectly, it became a habit. Like for example, in Serbia, I think the most commonly used mistake is saying conversation with a
Yeah.
Z and not conversation. I hear not just students but teachers say it that way. So it's become standard. And then you have to unlearn that. That's also one of our challenges as teachers. We have to make them unlearn those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, and this goes for
Yeah.
all languages. Like, of course, with Bosnian, Croatian, and Serbian, Padej for English speakers, that's
Yeah.
a crazy concept. And for the longest time, people wouldn't correct me with it. So there's certain things
Hmm.
that I would always say wrong. Like when I'm saying something big, I always just thought it would automatically be veliki for something big, but I
Hmm.
didn't know it could sometimes be velika. I didn't know.
Yeah,
Like
if it's in the
I didn't.
feminine
Yeah,
gender.
and the first time somebody corrected me, velik, I was like, "Is it? I thought big is velik." No, it
Yeah,
depends. I'm like,
because you don't have in English biga.
yeah.
Yeah, or bigo.
Yeah. So these things are like in the street I was where I used to rent in Sarajevo in the neighborhood Göbrovica. I believe there's a neighborhood called Göbrovica in Novi Sad as well, actually. But yeah,
I
but
don't know, to be honest. I mean, I've been to Novi Sad, but no, I don't know
yeah,
all the parts.
yeah,
Yeah.
I believe there is one. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
this is the Göbrovica in
Uh-huh.
Sarajevo, not Novi Sad. They made an intervention on all the local streets, all the local stores, sorry,
Hmm.
on the street, that they were basically not going to serve me properly until I ordered the things in Bosnia. They're like, you've been here, you've been coming here for so long, like
Yeah,
you got to get this, you got to
you
get this
have to say
correct,
it.
you
Yeah,
got to say it
to get it.
correct. So and it was good. Like in the beginning, it was a little bit intense. Like, oh come on, guys, just give me the bread, man. But
Yeah, and also burek, a mistake that we make, even as Serbs, when we go to Bosnia, we say burek sa
uh
sirom.
yeah, you
I
can't do that.
have some Bosnian friends, so I'm aware of how huge a mistake that is.
Yeah. So
It's unforgivable to Bosnians. Have you ever made that mistake? Say, yeah, have you ordered burek sa sirom in a Bosnian bakery?
no, in fact, because when I went to, did I have burek? Did I have burek in Serbia? I must have. I must
Hmm.
have. But then by the time I got to Bosnia, it was just people just made it clear that this is burek. Anything else is pita. That's it. But it's only
Yeah.
when I was in Mostar and or East Sarajevo,
Hmm.
then because obviously Mostar has Croats, East Sarajevo has Serbs. Then there's some places that will say burek sasino.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And did you correct them?
Yeah, I remember in Mostar actually. The one place the guy I said I, I asked for burek and he said he says to me "Sasasirem ili mesum," and I'm like, no,
No,
there's no
what are you
burek
saying?
sasirem.
Like, man, you got it wrong.
I'm like that, and that's senator, and he's like he started laughing. He's
Yeah, that's so funny. Like when a foreigner corrects you, like then you really have to think, like, what am I doing? I don't know my own country. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah.
I remember once when I went to London in this store, Marks and Spencer,
Mm,
and I asked, what does M&S stand for?
okay.
And the woman started laughing, like no one has ever asked me that question. That's what she said. It's like, coming to Belgrade and then, like asking who's Novak Djokovic. So
Yeah.
it's one of their most famous stores. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, going back to just the language learning, um, it's not just when it comes to English. Like for you learning Serbian, and most foreigners say that Serbian is hard.
Yeah,
They say that it's harder.
it's hard. Like it's especially as a because there's a lot more like
It's different from English. So English is a Germanic language. Serbian is a Slavic language. So
yeah,
it's different kind of grammar.
but the different functions of the grammar is what makes it difficult for us. The way that not like you got the masculine and the feminine, like with French, but then you also
Yeah.
like Pardish, and like the Pardish is
Yeah.
really what gets us as well. And then also, I guess the sounds of letters. Once you like,
Yeah.
is my what actually really started to help me in recent times is I was going to say my girlfriend's from Bosnia, but she's technically from Herzegovina, but but
Hmm.
Bosnia, whatever. But what really helped me was when she pointed out to me that just listen to the sounds of the letters
Hmm.
because you say everything the way that the letters sound, which isn't the
Yeah.
case in English. that really helped me when it came
Yeah.
to Bosnian, Croatian, and Serbian. Just read the word and then say it how the letters sound.
Yeah.
And but so the first obstacle is there's sounds that exist that don't exist in English.
Yeah. I mean, they exist in
They
some
exist
form.
in some
Yeah.
form, but not like
Yeah.
not like in sometimes it's not in the you need two letters to make
Yeah.
that same letter sound, you know?
Yeah. Like for
You know.
example, je. You don't have it, the letter je in English, but you have in transcription. Like for
Yeah,
example, the first thing that came to my mind, the football player Gervinho. You remember him?
yeah,
He played for Arsenal, so they can pronounce his name. And I think there are lots of words in English. I can't remember one now, but they have the sound je, also the sound sh.
yeah.
And
And
as you said, you need two letters to make that
yeah,
sound. Yeah.
exactly. And I think hearing the difference in those sounds as a native speaker is a challenge at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? What's the difference?
I think ch and ch are the biggest
Yeah,
challenge. Yeah.
to this
Even
day
for
I still miss that
even
mess
for
up.
for Balkan people, I think
Okay.
they sometimes, intertwine them. So, and you just
Yeah.
have one, you have like a soft ch, something in between in English.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like what you said about having to speak. That's why even with this year I'm pushing myself. I'm gonna push myself to speak more in Bosnian, Croatian, and Serbian
Mhm.
because the knowledge is there,
Yeah.
but if you're not saying the things, then. But I have this. I don't know if you've ever experienced this when you were learning English, but I have this weird thing with when I'm under pressure. Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian, it just the level seems to jump. Like when I have to use it,
Ah, yeah.
it just happens.
When it's ride or die.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
remember in Novi Sad, this cab driver picked me up from the hostel I was staying at, and he was driving me to the train station. Talking. I'm trying to tell him, my Serbian is it's not so good. He's like, I want to have a conversation. So I said, okay, can you like say it again slowly and a bit
Mhm.
slower? And he said what he said, and I just said, okay, I'm not gonna think too much. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
speak
you're
to you,
just gonna wing it. Yeah.
and it worked. We had this
Yeah.
15-minute conversation, flowing well. Yeah, I made small mistakes here and there, but he understood what I was saying. I said, okay, it's there.
Yeah.
When I need to pull it out, it's there.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you understood each other. So even though your Serbian at the time wasn't flawless, you still explained what you wanted to say, and the guy understood you. And that's what I say also to my students. Like, your English isn't perfect, but that doesn't mean that you should be silent. You have to learn it by speaking it. So even though you're imperfect, you have to be imperfect in the beginning. So
Yeah,
just speak it, and the teacher will correct you, and that's how you will learn, making mistakes. And also, like, using any kind of opportunity you have. So especially here in Serbia, we don't have as many English speakers, and then when you run into someone who speaks English, speak it, as much as you can, and use that interaction, use that as practice. So you have this goal, you want to learn Serbian better.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's been like I mean, so many years. I should. The reality is, I should be in theory. I should be 100% fluent. But
Hmm.
there's two. I think there are three factors for why I'm not. One, the first is just myself being too self-conscious.
Uh-huh.
The second is, for example, I often when I get like when I'm in Bosnia, Croatia, or Serbia, or when and I get a call from a marketing company, I use this as an opportunity
Hmm.
to speak the language.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is it. Then nobody, I don't need to feel embarrassed. They can't see me.
Yeah.
But what I noticed, most cases, once I start to make some mistakes, or sometimes I don't even make mistakes, they just hear my accent. They're like, okay, this guy's not from here,
Yeah.
and they start speaking English. I'm like,
And
oh,
do you
okay,
tell them, no, no, I want to speak Serbian?
sometimes I'm like, but like, oh, I want to tell you the
Ne
thing,
pričam
and
engleski. Yeah.
yeah,
Only srpski, brate.
yeah. So then I'm like, oh, come on, I'm trying to practice. Come on, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think being persistent, like as you said, when you are under pressure, that's when you will perform best. I remember when I went to Japan and the English didn't help at all. Like I had to know Japanese phrases, Japanese words to get around to ask for something. And luckily, I studied also Japanese when I was at uni for 2 years. And my level was somewhere between A1 and A2. So that's not beginner, but, not intermediate yet. So basically, I knew all these important phrases. I knew how to introduce myself. I knew how to ask for directions, things like that. And that was really life-saving. And the moment where it was really worth it, knowing Japanese was because it was at the end of COVID and I had to go and do a COVID test. So
yeah.
without this test, I couldn't leave the country. And I had to go there and I had to explain because I was recommended by a friend and I had to explain that. If I couldn't explain that, I wouldn't have, you know, got the chance to do the test, and I had the flight later that day. So this was the you know either, well, as I said, ride or die. So either I'm getting this test or I'm not leaving the country. So luckily, I was able to explain the whole situation using my broken Japanese, but still, it was good enough to explain it. And yeah, so I really encourage people, everyone, whatever language you're learning, just accept your imperfection and go down that road and speak, because you need to speak in order to become better, and
Yeah,
eventually you will get better and better, and you will be happy with your knowledge. So
yeah, no, 100%.
yeah.
I agree because because you reminded me of another thing. Another block I have as
Mm-hmm.
I'll say as a native speaker maybe, but it's also I think more personal to me is when I'm speaking with someone from Bosnia, Croatia, or Serbia who speaks English very well. Like my girlfriend's always saying to me, "Well, you don't speak Bosnian with me," but her English is amazing,
Yeah.
native level.
Yeah.
You can't even like hear like Bosnian accent when she's speaking English. She teaches English. She's got a master's in it. So
Yeah.
when I'm speaking Bosnian, I just feel this
So it's
self-consciousness.
easier. Yeah.
No, but for I have this self-consciousness comes over me where I'm thinking you speak my language really well and I can't speak yours to that same
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. 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 I feel
And
a
then
bit
I
guilty.
and
Yeah.
I don't even want to like this block comes where I'm like let's just speak in English. Whereas when I'm in situations where the person doesn't speak English, okay, let's go. I mean, there's no other way. You don't speak English anyway. I mean, maybe to be honest, I have been in situations where the person understands English really well but can't speak it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's very
I
common
I
here.
I understand Bosnian very well, but don't speak it so well. So we're just. I remember being on the bus in Sarajevo one time, and I had it like I was sitting near the bus driver, and we were having a conversation. He was speaking to me in Bosnian, I was speaking to him in English, and it was like a very good flowing conversation. And people were
Yeah.
looking at us like, "What's going on there?" It's like, no,
Am I dreaming?
he
Yeah.
really had a good understanding of English. He's not used to speaking it. and
Yeah.
vice versa. I'm like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just
Yeah. Yeah.
can't think quickly.
I think I know why that happens. I mean,
Mm.
it's really to me it's simple because here in the Balkans we are so used to listening to the language, so
Right. Okay.
watching films, series, TV shows, listening to foreign songs on the radio, and we subtitle everything. So we don't dub, we
Right.
subtitle all the shows. Whereas in, for example, Hungary and in Italy, everything is dubbed. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you watch Friends, the TV show, you watch them speaking Hungarian in Hungary. You hear Italian in Italy. So and that's why their level of English competency is lower. I mean, of course, there are great speakers, but what I saw when I went there, it's the opposite as in the Balkans. I mean, in Serbia, Bosnia, where you have really fluent speakers. Like I think every second person is a good English speaker. And I think, but also the majority of that group that knows English, they only know how to understand it. They don't know how to speak it. So, and if you don't know how to speak it, I mean, it's useless. So you can only be a listener. You can't be a speaker.
That makes sense
Yeah.
because, like, because when I think about the amount of time, like for the last 14 years until like COVID, at least 50% of my year was spent in the Balkans.
Mhm.
So I'm hearing the language all the time. So it's just I'm hearing people say, I know what you said. I may not have the exact vocabulary to
Yeah.
respond, but I know what you said. And then, so it really makes sense what you're saying there. That
Yeah.
when you can feel the language without like you get to understand it, especially through the context of being in a situation. You understand, even if I don't know the exact translation of that word, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a proposition. So you're not going to like this, but next time when we have another episode together, we can speak in Serbian.
Yeah.
Maybe not for the entire episode, but a larger portion of the
Mm.
episode. What do you
Yeah.
say? Are you
Yeah,
up for it?
I'm up for that. It
So
will
that
give
will
me a
give you some time to brush up on the Serbian again. I'm not, you know, I'm giving you some time. So
yeah. I have to warn you in advance. I have a tendency to mix Bosnian, Croatian, and Serbian phrases in the
that's
same.
fine. I mean,
Yeah, the reason I say
it's
this because
like
I
for me, it's like one language. I mean,
right
it's
I would
like
agree with that, but obviously some
English
people
and yeah, some
yeah
people maybe be offended and say no, it's not. But for me, I mean, as a linguist, I think there are more similarities than there are differences, and it's like the English in England and in Wales and in Scotland. So I would say, yeah, it's one language. Maybe I'm gonna have some comments, some haters, yes, commenting there, but it's okay. It's my opinion. And would do you feel the same looking at it as a foreigner? Do you think it's one language with some?
absolutely. Like if you look
Yeah,
at the definition of the word language, a code of communication, it's the same code of
yeah,
communication.
yeah.
There's with slight variations.
It's just it depends on where you are exactly. Like it's the same. Like the English in London and the English in Newcastle is also
Mm.
has differences. So they use some specific phrases and that are maybe not familiar to the ones on the other side. But yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
because
a
it's
yeah. When we
this
speak in English, I'm not gonna in Serbian. I'm not gonna correct you. Like no, that's not up to Serbian standards or something. Don't you
because
don't have to
for
worry about
example,
that.
in 2007 when I was living in Pančevo, and so I would go to Belgrade like almost every day because I'm like there's more things to do in Belgrade and
Yeah,
I would take it upon myself some days when I had the day off work to just walk around the city and speak to people. I'm like ask for directions, basic things just to keep the language flowing in my mind. and especially with like younger people, they would laugh. They're like, they start, and I started to get really like self-conscious. Like, why are people laughing at me? Like, I think what I'm saying seems pretty clear.
Mhm.
And then so I asked one guy, he must have been maybe 19, 21 perhaps.
Mhm.
I said to him, like, the way I speak Serbian, is it strange? He said, why do you ask? He's like, because I'm every time I speak to people, they keep laughing. He said, no, it's not strange. It's just that it's quite interesting to see a black guy in Serbia speaking Serbian like a Bosnian.
Ah,
I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, okay, I'm using a lot of Bosnian
yeah,
dialectic. I'm like, okay, okay. So
yeah.
like,
It's like a combination of, yeah,
I was like, okay, this makes sense now. Okay.
like pizza with pineapple. Yeah, like combining different stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, when I went to the UK on the first time, people were telling me that I had an Italian accent, and I actually got offended. Like, yeah, I don't, because I was sensitive then. I was surrounded by people speaking English perfectly, and I was like, oh no, it's not Italian. But maybe it sounded, I don't know, maybe um it sounded like that. And that's another thing that I tell my students, don't worry if you have, I don't know, if your English isn't as the English in the at Buckingham Palace, you shouldn't have those kinds of expectations. So it's normal to have an accent when you're not a native speaker, but eventually, the more you practice, it will get posher or fancier. Yeah. So yeah, you had some really interesting experiences as a traveler and as an English teacher. And now, just as like a sum of your experience in teaching, what, how would you advise some learners that are, let's say, not motivated enough, or maybe too shy to start a course, an individual or a group course? Like, what would be your message to them, like just to encourage them and to inspire them to start learning the language?
You know, I can definitely relate. So I would say, like, if you're really interested in learning a new language, learning anything, in fact,
Yeah,
you can't, or proving yourself in any kind of way, you can't rely on motivation. Motivation can get you started and
yeah,
will help you through some parts of the process, but you just have to decide, like, okay, I'm gonna do it and make the effort,
yeah.
you know.
Being decisive, being disciplined. So
Yeah,
discipline, I think, is stronger than motivation. As you said, motivation is what gets you started, but discipline keeps you in the process.
yeah. And if you have like a natural, like, say, talent or ability to learn language, don't just rely on that. And I think that's been,
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm saying that even for myself, because my mother spoke 7 languages,
Wow. 7.
and I would say that my understanding of language, I think I got from my mother,
Uh-huh.
and for lots of my time, for a lot of my life traveling, I've relied on this natural ability to understand languages. When I was in Turkey, I picked up Turkish in the first
Mm-hmm.
2 months. I was speaking to
Yeah.
without really trying. But then I left Turkey. I stopped practicing. It's now in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
When I was in Ireland, I spoke Gaelic to like 90% to fluency.
Yeah.
Stop practicing. So don't if you have that if you know you have that natural ability, that's great. But don't rely on that. Once
Yeah.
you notice you're picking up the language, like push to actually become really fluent.
Yeah, if
Make,
you
yeah,
got this gift, if you were born with it, you have this proneness to learning languages more easily than others, then just use it. Use that gift. Don't let it vanish. Don't let it just fade away.
yeah. So
And to those who aren't as talented,
yeah, either way, you can do it. You can do it. Just put the time in. You know,
yeah,
you'll start to see. And I guess the biggest piece of advice I would say is take the small wins, because I think that's the biggest thing. People are like, oh, I'm not
yeah,
improving fast enough. It doesn't matter. If you know a little bit more this month than you did last month, you're winning.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. Like going to the gym, you can't go once or twice and then expect to have a six pack. So you have to put in the time and the work, and also having the right direction. And that's what you get from your teacher. So also choose your teacher carefully. See if they are conducting the kind of lessons that you expect. So as Nick and I mentioned, so just not focusing on the grammar, but on the practice, the direct use of the language. So if you have lessons like that, then it's going to get better and better. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so something that came to my mind when we were speaking previously is being in Macedonia. I realized in Macedonia I was a lot more comfortable because there was no Pardish. I was like that for me was I was just speaking.
No, can you say that again?
People
No.
people weren't using Pardish in Macedonia when I was in
Ah,
Scotland.
Padish. Padish.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there was so I was so comfortable because I didn't have to worry about that. So I was just going, and people were telling me like you speak really well, like and I was like,
That was like a cheat code.
it was like that's the cheek, but
No, Padish, no problem.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember in Skopje, I was really comfortable. I was
Yeah.
really comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, English, sorry, Serbian, it is way up there on the list of the hardest languages to learn in the world. So English is easier. Like Italian, people say it's one of the easiest ones because it has so many um, vowels, and it's kind of like a musical language. But English is harder, but Serbian is a special nut to crack. Yeah.
Yeah,
So don't feel discouraged, because you haven't like solved it yet. You have the time, you have the friends to talk to, you have the opportunities. So I think you have the right mindset. So you have all you need to learn Serbian. Yeah.
yeah, I know I can do it. I know, like what you said
Yeah.
is the discipline. I need to get that down, and like I said, because when I was younger, I always relied on like there was a point when I was speaking French pretty well. Just my mom spoke French. I'd visit her in Ivory Coast, and it's just then I just like let it go, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nick, so much. This was a real pleasure. Like, I think we planned like an hour or something to speak, but we just went deep inside these topics and had so much to say and lots of good advice. And it was a truly pleasant experience for me. And thank you so much for taking the time to come here and speak and share your wonderful ideas. So I'm I'm really excited about maybe having another episode, possibly in Serbian in the future. I think the viewers are really going to find this these stories interesting and also inspiring above else.
yeah.
So thank you again for coming to this podcast, and it was a real pleasure
Oh, it was a
for you to
pleasure
be
being
here.
here, man. I look forward to doing it again. I'm gonna have to make my schedule, practice my Serbian.
Ah, yeah. You've heard it here, folks.
Yeah,
So he's gonna practice. Yeah, he will lead by example.
exactly.
Thank you so much, man. It's a real pleasure. And so this has been another episode of the Super Sensei Podcast. Thank you for watching. This was Nick, and thank you, Nick, for being here. See you
Awesome.
soon.
Cheers.